So those that know my presentations might know that I like to crack a few jokes at the beginning. And I think I did this last time too in Amsterdam. So I discovered this account on Twitter and on Facebook. They exist to very British problems. As any of you know, very British problems too. I really love it. So I'm going to, yeah. So there are some good ones there. It's really based. I'm not British, but I can very much appreciate their humor, like Monty Python. And it's kind of similar. I like this one, very short, straight to the point. So one more. Yeah. So yeah, I'm Balint Erdi. I wrote a book to teach Ember to beginners, like Ember beginners, so from the ground up. And I work as a solo consultant, Ember consultant. And I'm going to talk to you about generator functions in JavaScript, and then just tell you very briefly about why, as an Ember developer, you should care about generator functions. Besides, of course, being interested in anything JavaScript. But yeah. So generator functions are a new thing in ES 2015. They are quite similar to functions in that they can have a return value. You just create them by putting an asterisk after the function name, like this. And the one big difference that they have compared to function is that they are multiple entry. So you can enter any time, and as you proceed through the function, it will stop at the first yield statement and give that back the first time, and then the next time it's going to stop at the next statement, and so on, until it gets to the end and there are no more yield statements. So it doesn't seem that powerful at first, but I think that you can do some really neat tricks with it, and I hope to show a few simple ones. Well, kind of an inane one, and then something that can be used. So we have created, the one thing that you shouldn't look at is probably the right, so the thing that's going to be compiled down to, it's really very special. This is just these 7 lines. So yeah, the way you create, actually I already created the generator function, but then the way you should, you just call it as a regular function. But instead of returning a value, what it does is that it will give you an iterator, the log generator, and it's going to be, so it's going to have, let's see that. So it's going, oh yeah, that's not it. So it returned this generator function prototype, but if you then call next on it, then this thing, the line, which returns the next, has a value. So you see that when I call the next, then it returned that line, and that line has a value, and then a done, which is just a Boolean value. So the value is the next value that the function returns. So we see love me 2 times baby because this is the first thing that we returned from the generator function, and it's not done yet because there are more yield statements in the function. So I explain the same thing here.
Why isn't it current?
Sorry?
Current, you say next, but it's the current one.
Yes, yeah, I think it's in iterator syntax you usually call it next. You could call it current, I guess, but you get the next value from the function, I guess that's the argumentation behind it. So all I'm doing here is that I should probably, so So you can see what I explained in the beginning, that first it will return lovely 2 times baby, so it will just go down and return each time, return the next thing. So this is like a very simple example. And if you run out of yields in the function, then you can just call it. So calling next again on the generator doesn't throw an error, it will just return undefined. If you check the value, then it's going to be undefined. Yeah, the value is undefined there. So, but that's kind of a painful way to go through an iterator like this, sorry, a generator like this. So there's another more succinct syntax, and this is the let off. So not, you can of course use anything here like a bar, but it's the off syntax that you just call again the generator function, and then what this syntax does is exactly the same as this. So it calls next on it and then gets the value property out of that. So this, as you can see, returns the same thing. So it just iterates through each time. You don't have to, of course, manually call it. So that's a better way to go about that. And what you also can do with generator functions is that you can feed back some value into the generator function. So far we have only returned values from the generator function to the outside, but you can do it the other way around too. So what I do below is the first 4 lines are the same, but then I get the value from the yield, and then I use it in the next line. So this is, I think, a bit hard to wrap your head around. And again, this is the exact same 4 lines, so I'm calling it the same way. But here, on the 5th time, I'm passing in tomorrow, which is going to be that this 1,4 value is going to be tomorrow. So now I'm passing it in from the caller into the function. So this will yield us 1,4 tomorrow, and then the next time I pass in just today, so and 1,4 will going to be just today. So finally I'm going to yield back 1,4 just today. Let's see if that's indeed the case. With 4 off and feeding values back, indeed you can see that it does this. So that's really neat. But as I said, you can use generators for useful things too, not just generating lyrics line by line. So one simple example, of course, when you think about like infinite series sequences, you think of the Fibonacci series. And I sat down to implement this, and I think this is like, it's really what the Fibonacci series is, right? So the first value is 1, the next value is 1. You have to know that these are the 2 first elements of the Fibonacci series, but then each element is just the sum of the previous 2 elements. So what I'm doing is I yield out, so I'm giving it, okay, this is the current value, or the next value of the series, and then I just reset the previous value to the current one, and the current one to the previous. And this, I can do it this succinctly because ES 2015 supports this method of reassigning values. So otherwise I would have to use temporary variables, but this makes it even nicer because it just works in ES 2015. So then I'm doing it again, so I call this Fibonacci generator, and then in here I just take, each time I take the next value out of the series as long as I want to. So now I'm taking out the first 10 values. Let's see if that works. You can see that 1, 1, 2, 3. So it really does it, but I could totally do the first 20. And at the end, you can see that it's still not done. So what I'm doing here is that this is an infinite series, and I can just define an infinite series without any difficulty, because I'm not generating the whole series, I'm just generating them on an as-needed basis when calling next. So I think this is really nice. I think you can do it in several languages, but so far in JavaScript it wasn't that easy. So that's the JavaScript part. You might have heard about Ember concurrency. Who heard about Ember concurrency?
Who's mighty?
And so Ember concurrency uses generators under the hood. If you take a look at the README, then there is one sort of modification that Alex Metchnier did. And he's using a yield keyword which promises. So if you return a promise in Ember concurrency, if you return yield and then a promise, then it will wait until the promise is resolved and then go on. So this is kind of, you can write very synchronous looking code with having quite complicated asynchronous processes in the background. So this timeout is again provided by Ember concurrency. All it does is just waits that many milliseconds and then lets the function continue. So this is the simplest example. I hope this works. I didn't write it, so it should work. And this is a more complicated example, and I really like it. This is a, how do you call it? Auto search. When you do some auto searching, the user is typing something and you want to show them results as they type. But you don't want to hit the backend each and every time they press a key, so normally you use debounce, but then you have to watch out for several things. Ember concurrency makes this more robust, and I think also, well, I'm not sure if I can say easier to read, because at first it's really not that easy to read, I think, but at least it's really top down, so it's really synchronous looking, and I think it's easier to understand. So what it does, we already saw the timeout. This waits for as many milliseconds as it was defined here, so in this case 250, and then it hits the search endpoint, which is another generator functions, another task. So the task in Ember concurrency is what uses the generator functions behind the scenes. So this again returns a promise, so this will not move on until that promise is resolved with the results, and then it just returns the results. And the way this works is that it's also restartable. So the debounce is replaced by this yield timeout, because restartable says that if the function has moved this far, but there's a new task of this type started, then just throw away the first one and then use the new one. So this will have the same effect as a debouncing, because then it will throw it away, wait again. If 250 milliseconds have passed, then it has already moved on. So then really hit the backend, otherwise we throw away the current task instance and start a new one. So it's, again, I think Ember concurrency is something that initially is hard to understand and really see how that works, but once you do, it also makes your code easier to, I think, read, and definitely more robust, because you can get rid of a whole slew of things that are usually like defensive programming, checking if the component is still is not destroyed and things like this. That's it. Thank you very much for your time.